To sort of wrap up our discussion on image navigation, I want to go over some of the Photoshop preferences that have to do with navigation so that you can set these to whatever works best for you. Now, as before, we need something open, so I'm going to go to File, Open, and let's grab this image of the desert. Now, these are from the sample pictures that come with with Windows 7. If you don't have these, you can use absolutely any picture that you find on the internet. That'll be just fine. Okay, so let's jump over under Edit and go down to Preferences, and we'll choose General, which is where you're going to find these navigation-based options. And there's really only a few of them that pertain specifically to the stuff we've been discussing. We have Animated Zoom, Zoom Resizes Windows, Zoom with Scroll Wheel, Zoom Clicked Point to Center, and Enable Flick Panning. And I just want to go over what each one of these things does. Now, Animated Zoom, if you mouse over each one of these, by the way, you'll get a tooltip which tells you about them. This will determine whether zooming is animated, which requires OpenGL drawing. If I switch this off, and I have the zoom tool active, so tap the Z key if you don't, and I click on something, we just kind of jump right into the object, or jump right into the document. If I hold down Alt, we jump right back out. This is kind of the old school version of zooming that Photoshop has had forever and ever. Well, at least it had back in the day, let me put it that way. Let's go back over to Edit, Preferences, General, and now we'll switch this back on, and you can see what Animated Zoom is going to do. We just kind of fly into the document. It does kind of help you get a little less disorientated as you zoom in and out, but really, more than anything, it's just kind of a pretty thing. So if you don't want to have to deal with that, by all means, switch it off. Now down from here, we have Zoom Resizes Windows. We actually saw this option in the options bar for the Zoom tool, and what this allows us to do is when a document is floating as opposed to being docked, it doesn't work when it's docked, as we zoom in and out, you'll see the document, the window itself, is resizing to accommodate, and that's the same as this checkbox. So just be aware of that. So let's go back over to our preferences. Actually, let me redock that because I'd prefer this to be docked for the time being. We'll go back over to Edit, Preferences, back up to General. Now the next one we have is Zoom with Scroll Wheel. I actually use this a lot. I practically never use Zoom Resizes Windows, but I use Zoom with Scroll Wheel as opposed to actually doing panning with the scroll wheel. That's because if I want to pan an object, as I mentioned in a previous video, I generally will just hold down the space bar, and I don't need to use the scroll wheel for any of that sort of thing. Also, I have a background with 3D applications, and in just about every 3D application that I use, the scroll wheel is going to zoom the camera in and out. So it's just kind of a behavior that I'm used to. So if we switch this on, now when I scroll the scroll wheel, we're just zooming in and out, which is a whole lot easier. The neat thing about this is the behavior is consistent with all tools. So in a way, it kind of alleviates the need to even use the zoom tool. If you hold down Shift, you'll zoom in and out a whole lot more quickly. So very, very nifty feature. I really like that, and I generally have it on my installs of Photoshop. So now let's go over to Edit, back over to Preferences, General. Now moving down from here, we have Zoom Clicked Point to Center. This one is kind of, well, it's kind of subtle. You have to kind of use it a couple of times to see exactly what it's doing. Let me go ahead and I'll leave it off for now, and we'll just click OK. We'll just kind of acknowledge that it's there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little tiny butte that's sticking up way out here in the morning, and click, and click, and click, and click. And notice we're getting closer, but we're not moving past the edge of the document. You know, we're not really worried about getting too close to that particular point that I'm clicking on. So I'm going to hit Control 1. Actually, there we go. Put focus back on the document, Control 1, and that'll take us back out here. Now watch the same behavior if I go back under Preferences, General, and we jump over to Zoom Clicked Point to Center and click OK. Now if I click, boom, it focuses us right on that point. It centers it up. Even to do it, it had to move the document so that only half the document is showing. It's just a way so that when you click on something, you know that whatever it is you're zooming in on is going to be centered up in the view. So if you like that behavior, then by all means leave that on. I'm actually going to turn it off for now, though. Next, we have Enable Flick Panning. I really am not the world's biggest fan of flick panning. It's on by default, and if you haven't caught on to what it does, here's the deal. If I zoom in a little bit, hold down the space bar to grab my hand tool, and I just flick the mouse, and that means that the mouse is still moving when I let go of the mouse button. And you see we get this kind of throwing behavior, like I can toss the document around. It's very cool. It's trying to simulate like the feel of a touch screen or something. It's nifty in its own way, but it's also a little irritating if I'm trying to rapidly kind of get from one end to the other, and I'm just kind of going, crazy with my mouse button. I find that I end up overthrowing or shooting way past the point I wanted to get to. So I'm really not the biggest fan of this feature. You might be. I think it's a whole lot cooler and prettier than it is practical, but that's just that's my opinion only, and your mileage may vary. So let's go over to preferences. We'll go back over to general, and I'm going to switch off flick panning and click OK. And now we're back to the behavior that I'm used to from years of working with Photoshop, along with other image softwares or just about anything where I have to move an image around, because Photoshop is the only one that I ever use where I can sling the image around like that. So that is a quick look at the navigation-based preferences. By all means, play with each one and figure out the settings that you like the most. We went over animated zoom, zoom resizes windows, zoom with the scroll wheel, zoom clicked point to center, and enable flick panning. But that is going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.